what have been the top 5 programs of the last 20 years? Waynesboro, Virginia. Number 1's easy. It can almost fool you into thinking 2 through 5 are also that easy. They're not. Okay, so program over team. Please maintain your focus here. Program over team. What are we valuing? Well, you can choose to value national titles. You can choose to value winning percentage, conference titles, double-digit win seasons. I just told producer Jesse, Stats and Info, I said, Jesse, take all of it, throw it in a blender, and just pour me out the best 5 cups we can find. Here's how we ended up shaking these out. Alabama's number 1. Now, this one's easy. They got 6 national titles in this time span. They've got 8 conference titles, 16 double-digit win seasons. Looks like a typo, but it's not. And the winning percentage is in the 80 percentile. And also, there are some sketchy years mixed in on the very, very front end of this. This is not all Nick Saban. He's only been there since 2007, and that was a 7-win season, by the way. He's just been so good since then, it hasn't mattered. So Bama's number 1. You know who I think the number 2 program in the last 20 years is? The LSU Tigers. You know why? Because they've won 3 national championships with 3 different coaches, and they've had the unenviable task of existing in the same division as Bama the entire time. So they got more national titles in this span than anyone else, and they've been bumping heads with Nick Saban at the peak of his dynasty the entire time. LSU's been really, really good. LSU's pumped the NFL full of draft picks too. LSU's won a lot of games too. They've had a couple of down years, but you know what else they've had? They've had a string of really, really good years that you don't remember because they had to play Bama. And everyone remembers that, I think it was like 8 or 9 year in a row streak that Saban had against Les Miles and the beginning of Ed Orgeron's tenure, which wasn't all that long. You go back and watch the games. They're like, it's one possession classic after one possession classic. So LSU's been very, very good. They've been extremely good. They've got 3 national titles in that span. They got 4 conference titles, 10 double-digit win seasons. I take into account they won 3 titles with 3 different coaches, and they've done it in the division Saban's in. Does anyone else think they would have had more success? I don't care, any other program we're about to go and talk about. You park them in Baton Rouge in the SEC West with Nick Saban. Who else is winning 3 titles? I know Saban won 1 of them, but the other 2? Look, who's winning those? I don't think anyone else is. So I'm putting LSU number 2. Ohio State is my number 3 program over the last 20 years. Look at that winning percentage, 84.9. At this point, I know what's being said in the chat. I know what's being said in the comment section. Well, they only got that high a winning percentage because they're in the Big Ten, and they've got a weak schedule. The Big Ten is the 2nd toughest conference in college football. They have been for a large chunk of this 20-year stretch. And you know what I don't do? I don't punish Ohio State because they don't have to play Ohio State. You notice that? It's so common sense, but people overlook this. Ohio State's schedule always looks softer than everyone else in the Big Ten because they can't play themselves. You don't get punished for that. That's a compliment. And so they've got the insane winning percentage. They've also got the national championship under Urban Meyer back in 2014. They got another one under Jim Tressel. They're there every year. They had that one hiccup year, and then they were right back again. So they're there every year. NFL draft speaks for itself. Recruiting speaks for itself. It's been a very, very stable program. They got 11 conference titles. They're winning more than a conference title every other year over the past 2 decades. 17 double-digit win seasons. So, yeah, Ohio State. You could make the argument for them being number 2. I would not argue if you put them above LSU. I told you why I value LSU more. Number 4 is the Clemson Tigers. Some of you I asked earlier had them all the way up at number 2. I put them at number 4. They have 7 conference titles in this time frame. It's important to remember they had a really, really good, solid run under Tommy Bowden. Before he was fired, they were having a really good, solid run there. So they were not garbage before that. They tailed off towards the end a little bit, but they've got a winning percentage right there, kind of where LSU has been. They've got 2 national championships. They got 7 conference titles, 11 double-digit win seasons. But you know why I'm putting them as high as I'm putting them? Those 2 national championships were won against Nick Saban. So they also butted heads with the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport, led by the greatest coach in the history of the sport, and they knocked him out twice. I give a lot of credit for that. I don't think, I mean, all national championships are equal in terms of the column, on the screen there, but some of them are tougher to win than others. And you're doing it, if you're getting 2 of them in that era, that's tough to do. And they also, they've kind of dominated a conference over there that should never be dominated to this degree, but it has. That record's 267, by the way, the last 20 years. So I put Clemson at number 4. This number 5 spot, I went back and forth. Jesse, I think I went back and forth 3 or 4 times over like a 5-minute span. So trust me, I know the arguments for a number of programs here. I put Oklahoma at number 5. They edged out Georgia by the width of a sheet of paper here. They've got them edged, okay? So I'm basically just doing a resume comparison here of Oklahoma and Georgia. They've got more double-digit win seasons. They've got more conference championships. If you care about such things, they've also got 4 Heismans during this time frame. I know the rebuttal. The rebuttal is, if we're Georgia, well, we don't care about Heismans. Secondly, they played in the pinball conference for a long time. Thirdly, they were the only legitimate alpha in that conference for a long time, whereas we've been playing in the SEC, and you just said you give credit for having to play around Nick Saban, so why not us? I get all that. Oh, by the way, there was the head-to-head in 2017. Yeah, I get all that. So as you can clearly see, even though I'm touting Oklahoma, I've made a really good argument for Georgia. Fractions of an inch either way. So if you want to call it a tie for 5th, that's fine, but I did not take the coward's way out. I am putting Oklahoma at 5, but there is a justifiable argument both ways there. Florida had a shot here, but Florida had too much of a lull, whereas some of these other programs, they have not really had lulls. So I went Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma. I saw some USC love. I saw some Miami love. The lulls are too big for me. Can't have it.